What was the training like in Brazil, and why did you decide to come up to America?
I used to train in Cerrado in Brasilia, and that's like I
For
started
those of us that
fighting.
don't know, what is Cerrado?
So Cerrado MMA is a team in Brazil, and it started in 2009. That was the same year I started fighting. So my first fight, my first fight wasn't as Cerrado MMA because we didn't have a name from the team yet. We were part of another team. We left that team. I was one of the fighters, and then we opened this like kind of our own thing. Like I didn't own the gym, like the
Daniel?
Daniel. He's the one that owns the gym and opened it. But I was part of one of the fighters. I was one of the fighters in the team, and since then until now, like until my last fight, I trained there and I trained in Brasilia, and I was always back and forth. I have had like longer periods, maybe 3 months that I spent here back in the days in Black Zillions, then Hard Knocks, and through the whole process until we got Killcliff. I was always back and forth, but mainly based in Brazil.
Is there a difference in the training styles? Is there something that stands out?
There are differences, and I think that there are really like what did I really like from there, and why did I stay there for so long? Like the vision they had more of my individual like characteristics and how to game plan specifically for like specific fights that I had, and how we could have the whole team, because it's not a super big team. We could have everybody kind of like, okay, now Vicente's gonna fight, so everybody's kind of from my fight because other guys didn't have fights.
Gotcha.
And then whenever somebody else had a fight, everybody was
A
working.
little bit more of an individual attention as opposed to like a team.
Yeah,
exactly.
While at Killcliff, there's 20 guys with fights coming up.
So it's a little more like boxing. There's a training camp specifically for
More specific to you.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I had the same thing at Gracie, New Jersey, where my home gym. It's the same thing. You get your individual attention is definitely more, but the training partners and like all the the high level coaches, high level training partners can't beat Killcliff.
And I would say even like more like, because Killcliff is a really similar format. Like a lot of the fighters and some of the coaches are together since the Black Zillion times, so like it has developed so much. Back in the day in Black Zillions, like you had one striking coach, one wrestling coach, and then one grappling coach, and that was it for 50, 60, 70 fighters. Nowadays, like Henry has so many other guys that work striking, and then you have
Sean Dieter,
he's great. He's great.
Sean Soriano, Jason Stroud.
You guys got some
Dieter
really,
Navarro,
really high level coaching over there.
A lot
and
of
then you have like Saeed and Greg working together for the wrestling, and then you have Gerald, who is a great fighter and help us, and Mickey, I don't know if at some point too helps with grappling. Gilbert and Herbert Burns, they also help sometimes with the grappling. So like now
there's a great school north of here called The Way.
Yeah, and the thing is like now it's so many guys that are working over there. And that's one of the reasons that I decided that now was the moment to move here. Why? Because now I felt like, okay, Killcliff now and this environment in Florida has, I would say, the best environment where I could have, is the closest where I could have both things. So I have the highest level where you have, top 15s. I think the top 15 in welterweight we have at like 4 guys or 5 guys, plus a whole bunch of UFC welterweights. And then you go to Bellator. We have number 2 in Bellator. Jason Jackson is going to fight for the title. We have Logan Storley that was the interim champ. So there's so much talent. Then there is the talent of the coaches. Like, it's not just any coach. Greg Jones has such a history behind him, Henry, the same thing.
He's been ducking us on the podcast a little bit, Greg Jones.
He'll come here at some point.
Yeah, one of these days we'll get him on here.
I think the hard thing for him is to sit down here for 1 hour.
Nah, we'll get him.
He'll be here for 50 minutes, then he's going to walk over there, then he's going to come over here.
Yeah, all over the place.
He got so much energy.
I think we figured out the bait. We'll get a couple. It's all about chumming the waters. We'll figure out some bait.
Yeah, we'll get him in here. He got sick. He was supposed to do it one day, and he got sick and couldn't. But we'll have him.
Is there any concern? I could see the value. Iron sharpens iron for sure. I could see the value of that training. But is there any concern that you're going to become familiar with guys who you're inevitably going to have to fight someday? Or
Not for me. I mean, that's crazy because that happened in the team. Kamaru and Gilbert fought. I was in Gilbert's corner for that fight. And I tell you, it wasn't nice. Like, it wasn't a good feeling because
That's uncomfortable, huh?
I trained with Kamaru and I lived with Kamaru in the Ultimate Fighter. So I have a relationship with him. Gilbert and me, we're brothers. Like, we've cornered each other so many times. Our families are super friends, super close. So, you know, when that fight was going to happen, and Gilbert and Kamaru, they have a good relationship as well, and they had that before. They weren't maybe as close as I am, you know, to Gilbert, that for sure, but they did have a relationship. So there was that friendship there, but it was a title fight. It was both of their dream. They had to do it. And I messaged Kamaru. I let him know that I was going to help Gilbert for that fight. But the day of the fight, when everything was happening, you know, when they were being announced, the energy was different. Like, it didn't feel good. And after the fight, it didn't feel good. I looked at Kamaru. Kamaru didn't feel good winning and defending his title. The whole thing was crazy. So that's something that it is challenging, and I think that it's going to become more and more common just because the sport is growing and teams like this, like Killcliff, I don't see a team like this not being what the future is, you know. It's like a franchise, like when you see a big football team, you know.
That's
You
what,
got
yeah,
this
that's what they're trying to
huge-
do. That's what Henry was on and was
Exactly.
talking about, that, trying to make it like a pro team.
Yeah.
Yeah.